Everything changed the moment the system awakened. Levels, stats, skills, dungeons, power beyond imagination. With the blood of a Saiyan, the mind of a gamer, and a destiny that will shake the entire shinobi world, Naruto is about to become something far greater than Hokage. This is Naruto, the Gamer Experience. Now let's begin today's chapter. My humblest apologies, Naruto-kun says, his voice tinged with genuine regret. Naruto stands opposite N with his hands casually tucked into his pockets. His blue eyes study the man before him, a mix of understanding and wariness in his gaze. You can't be held accountable for outside interference, Naruto replies, his tone measured. Nevertheless, I feel responsible. The integrity of the tournament was compromised and you were denied your fair prize, N says, his expression solemn. It's not the first time things haven't gone according to plan for me. I'm used to it by now, Naruto says with a shrug, a half-smile tugging at his lips. Still, I'll compensate you for the inconvenience and lost opportunity. It's the least I can do, N insists, straightening his posture. That's generous of you. But it's really not necessary, Naruto said, his eyebrows raising slightly in surprise. I insist, Naruto-kun. Your skills and determination impressed me greatly. I'd like to offer you something that might aid you in your future endeavors, N says, shaking his head firmly. What did you have in mind, Naruto asks, while titling his head and his curiosity piqued. And reaches into his desk and pulls out a checkbook, opening it with practiced ease and his pen poised over the paper. Naruto-kun. I'd like to offer you a sum that I believe is fitting for your remarkable performance and the unfortunate circumstances, N says, his voice steady and sincere. That's really not necessary, N. I didn't enter the tournament for money. I had my reasons, Naruto says, his eyes widened slightly and caught off guard by the gesture. I understand, but please allow me to do this. Consider it an investment in your future endeavors. My constitutes and I made a lot of money and I want to give you some, N says with a nod of understanding, but his resolve remains firm. He scribbles on the check, the scratching of pen on paper filling the brief silence between them, and with a flourish, tears the check from the book and holds it out to the redhead. Naruto takes it and his eyes scanning the amount as widen. Wow, that's a lot of zeros, he says, letting out a low whistle. It's well deserved, Naruto-kun. You made a lot of money, N says with a soft chuckle. Thanks, N. This will definitely come in handy, Naruto says, folding the check and slipping it into his pocket. Oh ho. Quite the windfall you've got there, boya. You could use that for 6 weddings. One for each of your lovely ladies, Musashi says, giggling in his thoughts. Naruto's cheeks flush slightly at the fox's teasing but can practically feel Musashi's mischievous grin as images of his 6 girlfriends flash through his mind. Tsunade's confident smirk, Sarada's shy but proud smile, Kagaya's serene expression, Istetha's intense gaze, his warm eyes and Mujina's beautiful smile all appear in quick succession. Cut it out, Musashi, Naruto thinks back, trying to keep his face neutral despite the warmth spreading across his cheeks. A girl can dream, can't she, and with that much money? You could throw quite the celebration, Musashi says, her laughter echoing in his mind. Naruto shakes his head slightly with a small smile tugging at his lips despite his embarrassment. Everything all right, Naruto-kun asks, noticing the young man's momentary distraction. Naruto blinks and focuses back on the present. Yeah, sorry. Just thinking about all the possibilities, he says with a grin, deciding to keep Musashi's comments to himself and turns to leave. Naruto-kun. Perhaps you'd consider competing in the Colosseum, N says, stopping the red-headed gamer. The Colosseum, huh? Sounds intense, Naruto says, looking back and a faint smile on his lips. It's where the truly exceptional fighters test their mettle and money to be made, N says with a nod and a glimmer in his eye. Might be fun. I'll think about it, Naruto muses, rubbing his chin. That's all I ask. You'd be a formidable contender, En says with a smile. Naruto grins and gives in a mock salute. Well, you know where to find me, he says and strolls away, hands in his pockets as he sees the new quest. Quest updated: find masked Uchiha and Ryujin. The masked Uchiha responsible for unleashing the Kyuubi from your mother and bringing Konoha to near collapse. Masked Uchiha seeks Ryujin, capable of using all 5 elemental natures. Reward: 1 + 1000 to stats. 2 Sharingan and all abilities. So the quest to stop Toby coincides with finding the Ryujin, Naruto thought, heading for the docks to leave Hawkeye Island. He nears the port and sees the familiar faces of Itachi talking with Sarada, while Tsunade taps her foot impatiently with her arms folded. Yi stands quietly and twirls one of her long stiletto blades with his death staring intently at it while asking to try. Kagaya, Mujina and Akari were quietly chatting but glanced to see him coming. Naruto. Have you finished your conversation with En Oyashiro? Itachi asks. His voice is calm but carries a hint of curiosity. Yeah. We wrapped it up. It was interesting to say the least, Naruto replies, a thoughtful expression crossing his face and subtly patting his pocket on his jeans. Itachi raises an eyebrow, silently inviting Naruto to elaborate, but after a brief pause, seems to decide that now isn't the time for a detailed discussion. We should head back to Konoha. There's much to discuss, Itachi says, his voice taking on a more urgent tone. Naruto nods with his blue eyes reflecting a mix of determination and curiosity. I agree. Toby has the scroll with the location of the Ryujin and we need to know more about it, he says, his voice steady. The Ryujin. It is located at the highest summit of Mount Koryu, Akari says while stepping forward and her voice tinged with a mix of awe and concern. Mount Koryu? I've never heard of it. Where is that? Sarada asks, adjusting her glasses and her brow furrowing in thought. Mount Koryu. I used stories about it when I was growing up. It's an ancient mountain range shrouded in mystery and danger. Few have ventured there and returned to tell the tale, Mujina comments, her voice carrying a mix of curiosity and caution. Yes. It's located to the west of the Land of Wind. On a small continent called Kodaku, Akari says, her voice filled with a mix of calmness and caution. Kodaku? I've never heard of it before. Is it like the northern continent? Naruto says, his eyes wide with interest. It's not surprising. Kodaku is relatively unknown to most of the shinobi world. The mountains there are treacherous and life is incredibly harsh, Akari says with a nod, her expression becoming more serious. But why is it so dangerous? Is it just the terrain? Sarada says with a slight frown. I wish it were that simple. Unfortunately, Mount Koryu is saturated with a unique type of poison that interferes with one's chakra. It's not just dangerous but can be lethal to shinobi who rely on their chakra, Akari responds, shaking her head. A collective murmur of concern ripples through the group as Estetha's eyes narrow. A poison that affects chakra? That's intriguing, she says, a hint of excitement in her voice. How does anyone survive there then? It sounds nearly impossible to explore, Yi says, tilting her head and her expression thoughtful. You're right. It is extremely difficult to traverse Mount Koryu. Only those wearing special armor can safely traverse the mountain. Without it, and the poison would quickly overwhelm even the strongest shinobi, Akari says, her expression grave. Naruto listens intently with his brow furrowed in concentration as the gravity of the situation sinks in. Boya. You have poison immunity. Going to Mount Koryu is no issue for you, Musashi says, causing Naruto to blink in surprise with a light bulb over his head. Naruto has poison immunity, the girls exclaim in unison and their voice mixes together, drawing Akari's attention. What? Is that true? But how is that possible? Akari says, her jaw dropping in shock. It happened a while back in the Elven Kingdom of Albion. It took an arrow meant for the elf queen Raylia. Naruto begins and slips off his left glove to show his scarred hand. It was touch and go for a while, but my body adapted. Plus my Oni summons helped me develop a resistance to poisons. Since then I've been pretty much immune to most toxins, he adds, his expression serious. Akari. Given this information, I have a question. How would someone like Toby go about finding armor to head to Mount Koryu? Itachi asks. His voice is calm but carries a note of urgency. Well, while Naruto might not need it. For someone like Toby, they'd need to seek out a competent smith on Kodaku. The armor required to withstand the mountain's poison is quite specialized, Akari explains, and still is processing the revelation about Naruto's immunity but pauses. It's not something you can just pick up anywhere. The smiths on Kodaku have perfected the technique over generations. They understand the unique properties of the mountain and how to counteract its effects, she adds, her expression thoughtful. Naruto listens intently and his mind already racing with possibilities. The prospect of exploring such a dangerous and mysterious place sends a thrill of excitement through him. He glances at his companions, noting the mix of concern and determination on their faces. With their plans set, do the Konoha group board their ship and set sail back to the mainland. The journey is mostly uneventful, filled with light chatter and preparations for their upcoming adventure to Kodaku. Naruto lays peacefully in his bed with his arms wrapped around Tsunade's warm body after an intense Janken match between the girls to get to sleep in bed with him. It is 2 days into their voyage, with the gentle rocking of the ship lulling them both into a deep slumber. Tsunade's back is pressed against Naruto's chest, their legs intertwined beneath the sheets. A blood-curdling scream suddenly shattered the tranquil night of maritime boating. Naruto's eyes snaps open with his body tensing instantly, and he recognizes Kagaya's voice immediately. What the? He mutters, his heart racing. Naruto? What's going on? Tsunade says while stirring in his arms, her honey-colored eyes blinking open in confusion. It's Kagaya. Something's wrong, Naruto replies, his voice tight with concern. He quickly disentangles himself from Tsunade and swings his legs over the side of the bunk. Tsunade quickly follows with the blanket falling away to reveal her simple nightgown. I heard it too, she says. Her long blonde hair is tousled from sleep, but her eyes were alert and focused. They scramble to their feet, the urgency of the situation evident in their quick movements. Naruto grabs a black t-shirt from the back of a nearby chair, hastily pulling it over his head and smoothing it down over his pajama pants. Tsunade rummages through her bag, her fingers quickly finding a pair of comfortable, loose-fitting pants. She steps into them, hopping slightly as she pulls them up under her nightgown. Naruto rushes towards the deck and his heart is pounding with every step. The narrow corridor seems to stretch on forever as he races forward with Tsunade close behind, but suddenly collides into something solid and nearly losing his balance. Oof, a familiar voice grunts. Naruto finds himself face to face with Sarada, and Mujina. Sarada is adjusting her glasses, which has been knocked askew by the impact. Ya looks alert with her instincts clearly on high alert, and Mujina ready for any threat. Did you hear that? Sarada asks, her dark eyes wide with concern. Yeah, and it sounded like Kagaya. We need to move now, Naruto replies, nodding grimly. Without another word do the group race towards the deck, their footsteps echoing in the confined space, but as they burst into the open air, they were met with an extraordinary sight. Death, Akari and Itachi were already there, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension. Kagaya stands frozen with her usually composed face twisted in shock as she points at the sky, all their eyes staring upwards with wide eyes. Music, Daniel Len's music, The Darkest Hour, loop. Holy crap, Tsunade whispers, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. Hovering above their ship is what looks like a giant, flaming meteor that is bearing down for them. The heat radiating from it is intense as it is making the air shimmer and distort. What is that thing? Mujina asks, her eyes wide with horror. The meteor casts an eerie but flickering light across the deck, painting everything in shades of orange and red. Istetha's ice blue eyes narrow as she studies the phenomenon. I've never seen anything like it, she admits, a note of frustration in her voice. Itachi activates his Sharingan with the Tomo in his eyes spinning as he tries to analyze the strange object. It's not Genjutsu, he says, his voice tense. The group stand there and are transfixed by the impossible sight above them, each wondering what this new threat could mean for their journey. Naruto lowers himself and launches skyward like a missile. How, he shouts, going SSJ2 and charging towards the bizarre phenomenon. Darling, wait, Isdeth calls out, but he's already gone. Naruto nears the flaming meteor but feels the intense heat radiating from it. His eyes narrow with determination and his body tensing for action. All right. Let's see what this thing's made of, he mutters under his breath, coating his arms in martial chi. The air around him crackles with energy as his blonde hair whips in the sudden updraft and with a fierce yell. Naruto thrusts his arms forward with his martial chi-coated hands slamming into the surface of the meteor. The impact sends shockwaves through the air with the force of it nearly pushing him back. Naruto grits his teeth and pushing harder as his SSJ aura flares out with the blue bioelectricity surging like lightning. Come on. Come on, Naruto grunts, feeling the meteor's resistance, but it begins to slow its descent. Naruto begins to gather energy with golden lightning starts to crackle around him, growing brighter by the second. His muscles tense with veins bulging as he channels more and more power to use Final Flash. You are in my way of my prize, a voice echoes around him, but before Naruto can react, the meteor explodes in a blinding flash of light and heat as the force engulfs him completely. Naruto, multiple voices cry out from the ship below, and as the light fades, tension grips the air. Kagaya's eyes bulge as she activates her Byakugan. There. Naruto's plummeting towards the ocean, she shouts, pointing at a falling speck in the distance. Isdeth doesn't miss a beat and rushes for the edge of the boat. I've got this. Let's go, she says coolly and leaps off the boat, shooting her hands forward to form an ice sheet with her Syromancy. Tsunade and Sarada were hot on her heels as they race across the icy bridge, but before they can get too far, chaos erupts on the ship. Strange, puppet-like figures emerge from around them, their jerky movements unsettling. Itachi, Kagaya, and Mujina spring into action as Akari goes below deck while the others fend off the bizarre attackers. What are these things, Ze grunts, slicing through one with her stiletto blade and sending a kick through another. Mujina slices through several puppets with her daggers as her movements are quick and precise. I have no clue, she grunts, spinning to face another wave of attackers. Itachi's eyes flash red with the distinctive pattern of his Mangekyo Sharingan swirling into focus. Let's see how they handle this, he mutters, his voice low and determined. Amaterasu, Itachi calls out, and instantly, jet black flames erupt from his eyes to race towards the nearest group of puppets. The inextinguishable fire is hot enough to burn other flames, engulfing the wooden figures. For a moment does it seem like the tide of battle has turned, but then something unexpected happens. The puppets seem to absorb the flames, instead burning to ash. The black fire swirls around them, being drawn into their wooden bodies like water into a sponge. Itachi's eyes widen in slight surprise. Impossible, he breathes out, watching as the last of the Amaterasu flames disappear into the puppets' bodies. The wooden figures stand there, unharmed, with their blank faces seeming to mock the ninja's efforts. A figure appears amidst the fray and moving with eerie grace as the newcomers' hands shoot out, grabbing Mujina and Ya by their necks. They gasp with their eyes widening in shock and pain. What the? Mujina chokes out, her daggers clattering to the deck. Ya struggles with her instincts kicking in, but it's futile as the stranger's grip is like iron. A soft but sinister glow emanates from where the figure's hands and touches their skin. Mujina and Ya's faces contort in agony as they feel their strength ebbing away. Stop it, Itachi shouts, trying to break free from the relentless puppet attacks and their growing numbers. The figure pays no heed and continues to drain the chakra from the two women. Their struggles grow weaker and their eyes starting to glaze over. Kagaya freezes with her pale eyes widening in disbelief. The figure has pale skin, shaggy white hair and strikingly handsome features. 6 Magatama designs are tattooed on his collarbones and forming an eerie necklace. Meanwhile, as Death, Tsunade and Sarada were racing along the shimmering ice bridge. Their footsteps echo against the frozen surface as they sprint towards the falling Naruto. The ocean looms closer with each passing second, its dark waves threatening to swallow their beloved whole. Istetha's face is a mask of concentration as she maintains the ice path with her blue hair whipping behind her in the wind. "We need to go faster," she shouts, her voice carrying a hint of desperation. "We're not losing him," Tsunade mutters through gritted teeth, her blonde pigtails stream behind her as she runs and her honey-colored eyes fixed on Naruto's plummeting form. Sarada's Sharingan whirls to life as she is calculating trajectories and speeds. "At this rate, we won't make it in time," she calls out, panic rising in her voice. Istetha's eyes narrow, and with a wave of her hand does the ice path suddenly slopes downward to turn their run into a steep slide. "Hold on," she yells as they pick up speed. The trio hurtle down the icy slope with the wind whistling past their ears as the ocean rushes up to meet them, the gap between them and Naruto closing rapidly. "Naruto," Tsunade shouts, putting on an extra burst of speed and her strength propelling her forward. Back on the ship as the battle rages on with Kagaya frozen in shock at the mysterious newcomer. "Hello, my lovely Kagaya," the stranger says, his lips curling into a smirk. His voice is smooth as silk, but there's an edge to it that sends chills down her spine. He's dressed in a fancy white kimono with a black obi and a pale green sash tied at his right shoulder. The back of his kimono catches the moonlight and revealing a yellow crest of a sun inside a crescent moon. "I am Tonari. Otsutsuki, my dearest Kagaya. I've come for you," the figure says, his smirk growing wider. With lightning-fast movements does Tonari toss Mujina and Ya aside like rag dolls. They hit the deck hard, out cold before they even land as Akari rushes to their sides. Itachi is still locked in combat with the relentless number of puppets. "Kagaya," he shouts, dodging a puppet's strike. Tonari's eyes gleam with dark amusement. "You can end this, Kagaya. Come with me and I'll spare them," he says, his voice smooth as silk. Kagaya's face hardens and her pale eyes flash with defiance. "I'll never go with you anywhere," she spits out, shifting into her Juken stance. "Have it your way then," Tonari says with his smile faltering for a moment, then twists into something cruel. With a flick of his wrist and another large swarm of puppets descend on Itachi. The Hokage fights valiantly with his Sharingan spinning as he dodges and counters, but there are too many. A lead puppet catches him off guard with its heavy arm slamming into his chest and bull rushes them towards the railing, crashing through the ship's railing and plummeting towards the dark waves below. "Lord Godame," Kagaya cries out, her voice laced with panic. For a heart-stopping moment, there's nothing but the sound of crashing waves, but a figure rises from the water, standing atop its surface with chakra-infused feet. Itachi stands tall with his clothes dripping but his resolve unshaken. "It'll take more than that to keep me down," he calls out, his voice carrying across the water. "Impressive but futile," Tonari says, his eyes narrowing. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he turns back to Kagaya. "Sure you don't want another meteor to fall? Your love is dying and you can't stop it. Shall I form another?" he asks, his voice dripping with false concern. Kagaya's eyes widen in horror with her gaze darting between Tonari and the distant figures of Naruto and the others. "To prevent it, just give yourself to me," Tonari says, his voice dropping to a silky purr. "Don't listen to him, Kagaya. We can handle this," Itachi calls out, still standing on the water and dueling several puppets. But Kagaya hesitates as she torn between her friends and the looming threat, but Tonari's smirk grows wider. "Tick-tock, my dear. What's it going to be? Your freedom or their lives?" Tonari taunts, while sensing her indecision. As if to emphasize his point does he raises his hand and the air above them shimmers, and a smaller but fiery orb begins to form. "Just a taste of what's to come," Tonari says, his eyes gleaming with malice. Kagaya clenches her fists with her mind racing as she knows she can't let her friends die, but the thought of going with Tonari makes her skin crawl. Kagaya starts, her voice trembling, and she pauses as Tonari tilts his head. I'll go with you, Kaguya says with her voice trembling and her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Tonari's smirk falters and is replaced by a look of dissatisfaction, louder. Much louder. Make me a believer, he demands, his voice dripping with disdain and shaking his head. Kaguya grits her teeth with tears now streaming down her pale face. Her fists clench at her sides with nails digging into her palms and takes a deep breath, her voice cracking as she forces out the words. I'm yours. I give myself to you. It's over. You've won, Kaguya declares, her voice carrying across the deck. The words hang in the air, heavy with defeat and resignation, and for a moment, silence reigns, broken only by the sound of the waves lapping against the ship's hull. Tonari's eyes gleam with triumph, and with a casual wave of his hand, the fiery orb above them dissipates, fading into nothingness as he throws his head back and starts laughing. Well done, my dear. Now let's make this official, shall we? Tonari says, his face twisting into a cruel smile, and with a snap of his fingers do the puppets freeze in place. It's like someone hit pause on a bizarre but twisted dance. Tonari strolls towards Kaguya with his steps slow and deliberate. The tension in the air is so thick you could cut it with a kunai. He reaches out as he grasps Kaguya's chin between his thumb and forefinger. His touch is gentle, but there's no mistaking the possessiveness in his eyes. Our wedding will be beautiful, Tonari purrs, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Behind him a swirling portal opens up, its edges crackling with energy. It's like looking into a whirlpool of darkness and light as Tonari takes Kaguya's hand, tugging her towards the portal. Kaguya's eyes dart to Itachi as he leaps back aboard the ship, his clothes still dripping from his impromptu swim. Tell Naruto and the others I'm sorry. And I love them, Kaguya says, her voice trembling as she speaks. Itachi's face is a mask of determination. We'll save you, he promises, his voice filled with conviction. Tonari sneers with his earlier amusement replaced by cold disdain. No, you won't, he spits out, yanking Kaguya through the portal. As they vanish, do the puppets crumble to dust, leaving behind a scene of chaos and defeat. The night air is filled with the sound of heavy breathing and the distant crash of waves. Song ends. Emergency quest received. Save Kaguya Hyuga from a ruinous fate at the hands of Tonari Otsutsuki. Reward 1,000 to stats. Naruto's eyes snaps open and finds himself lying on a soft bed in an unfamiliar room. The air smells of wood and fresh linen, a stark contrast to the salty sea breeze he remembers. Confusion clouds his mind as he tries to make sense of his surroundings and slowly turns on his side, his muscles aching with every movement. His gaze falls upon another bed across the room where Ya and Mujina lay, their chests rising and falling in a slow but in a steady rhythm. They seem to peaceful and is a far cry from the chaos he last remembers. A sudden movement catches his attention, and it is Sarada, who has been sitting in a chair near the window, and she rushes to his side. Her dark eyes were filled with concern as she leans over him. Naruto. How are you feeling? What do you remember? Sarada said softly, her voice laced with relief. Naruto's brow furrows as he pieces together his fragmented memories with his head throbbing and the images in his mind. A big stinking rock, he whispers, his voice hoarse. Sarada's expression shifts with a mix of concern and hesitation flickering across her face. She gently places her hand on Naruto's arm with her touch warm and comforting. That's only half of it, Naruto. There's more, and it's not good news, Sarada said softly, her dark eyes searching his face. Naruto struggles to sit up and wincing as his muscles protest. Sarada quickly moves to help him, adjusting the pillows behind his back. Once he is settled, does he look at her expectantly, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. What happened? Naruto asks, his voice stronger now but laced with apprehension. While you were dealing with that meteor and it exploded. The boat was attacked. Someone took Kaguya, Sarada says, after taking a deep breath and steeling herself. What? Who? How? Naruto stammers, his eyes widening in shock and his heart racing. Akari told us. The attacker called himself Tonari Otsutsuki. He appeared out of nowhere with these strange puppet-like creatures. He did something to Ye, and Mujina Sarada continues, her voice low and urgent. Naruto's gaze darts to the two unconscious women across the room, and now that he looked closer, could see the paleness of their skin but also the slight hollowness in their cheeks. What did he do to them? Naruto asks, his fists clenching in anger. He stole their chakra, Naruto. A lot of it. It's been almost 3 days since the attack and they're still unconscious. We've been monitoring them closely, but it's like their life force was drained, Sarada says, her voice trembling slightly. 3 days? I've been out for that long, Naruto says, his eyes widening in shock. You took quite a hit from that meteor. We were all worried sick, Sarada says, her expression grim and biting her lip. Naruto's jaw clenches with a surge of protective fury rising in him, and he struggles to swing his legs over the side of the bed, determined to get up. Naruto, wait. They're okay, Naruto. Tsunade used her chakra to help them, Sarada exclaims, placing her hands on his shoulders to keep him in place, and her dark eyes soften as she sees the determination in his face. Tsunade. Where is she? Naruto asks, his tense muscles relaxing slightly under her touch, but his eyes still burn with concern. She's in another room with his death. The healing took a lot out of her and she can't move right now. She needs rest, Sarada says with a sigh, tucking a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. And the others? Naruto asks, his jaw clenching as he processes the information. His gaze drifts to the window, where the first light of dawn is starting to peek through. Brother is trying to secure transportation to get us back to Konoha. Akari is with him and explaining more things. Kodaku, Sarada explains, her voice tinged with a mix of relief and worry. Naruto's fists clenches in the bedsheets with his knuckles turning white. Do we know where Tonari took Kagaya? He says, his blue eyes intense. Tonari opened some kind of portal. We have no idea where they went, Sarada says, shaking her head and her face falling. Naruto grits his teeth with frustration evident in every line of his body. The room falls silent for a moment, with the weight of their situation hanging heavy in the air. Damn it. We need to find her. We can't just let that bastard take her, Naruto mutters, his voice low and rough. He runs a hand through his messy red hair and his mind racing with possibilities and plans. Sarada's eyes well up with tears, with the weight of their situation finally breaking through her composed exterior. Without a word, leans forward and wraps her arms around Naruto, burying her face in his shoulder. Her body trembled slightly as she tries to hold back her sobs, and Naruto envelopes Sarada in a comforting hug. He could feel her tears dampening his shirt, and his heart aches for her, for all of them. Shoo. It's okay. I'll get her back, Sarada. I promise, Naruto whispers softly, his hand gently rubbing circles on her back. But how? We don't even know where to start looking, Sarada says with a sniffle, her voice muffled against his chest. I'll find a way, Naruto says, tightening his embrace and his voice filled with determination. He pulls back slightly and looks into Sarada's tear-stained face, and with a gentle hand, wipes away a stray tear from her cheek. Sarada manages a weak smile and drawing comfort from Naruto's unwavering optimism, but as they hold each other, Naruto winced slightly with his muscles still aching from the ordeal and Musashi healing him. Sarada notices his discomfort and gently pulls away. You need to relax those muscles. A hot shower might help, she said softly. Naruto nods and with Sarada's support, make their way to the adjacent bathroom. The bathroom is small but functional as Naruto sits on the edge of the tub while Sarada adjusts the water temperature. Steam soon fills the room and Naruto could feel the warmth seeping into his skin even before he got in. I'll help you, Sarada said, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. Naruto nods with a grateful smile as the hot water cascades over him, feeling his tense muscles gradually start to relax. Sarada's gentle hands help wash away the grime and sweat, her touch both comforting and invigorating. Naruto's mind wanders as he stands there and letting the water soothe his aching body, Another Otsutsuki like Yurashiki Musashi says, resonating in his thoughts. Naruto's eyes narrow with his fists clenching involuntarily. And he'll die like him too, he thought grimly, determination flooding through him. Sarada notices the change in his demeanor. What is it, she asks, concern evident in her voice. Naruto shakes his head and doesn't wanting to worry her further. Just thinking about our next move, he said softly, wiping his face. Naruto dries himself off with Sarada's help after the shower, her movements gentle and careful. She then retrieves some clean clothes from his nearby duffel bag. These should fit, Sarada said, handing him a simple t-shirt and pants. Naruto dresses himself and he feels stronger, and more like himself. The hot water and Sarada's care have done wonders for his body and spirit. Thank you, Naruto says, gratitude shining in his eyes. Always, Sarada says, a mix of affection and determination in her gaze. Naruto's gaze drifts towards Ya and Mujina, still lying motionless on their bed. His heart aches at the sight of them being so still and pale, and with slow but careful steps, makes his way over to them and Sarada close by his side in case he needed support. He reaches Ya's side first with his eyes taking in her peaceful face. A stray lock of her dark hair has fallen across her forehead and without thinking, gently brushes it away with his fingers, lingering for a moment to feel the coolness of her skin. They look so fragile, Naruto murmurs, his voice thick with emotion. Tsunade said their bodies are trying to regenerate the lost chakra. It's a slow process, Sarada says, her hand coming to rest on Naruto's shoulder. Perhaps you could share your chakra with them, Boya Musashi suggests, and Naruto sighs with a rub of his forehead. Musashi just suggested I share my chakra with them. Why didn't I think of that sooner, Naruto says, and Sarada pats his arm softly. You were blown up by meteor and unconscious for 3 days. So it would slip your mind, Sarada says, adjusting her glasses with a small giggle. Naruto places one hand on Ya's forehead and creates a clone to the same for Mujina. They close his eyes and concentrate on channeling his chakra into them with a soft but warm glow beginning to emanate from his palms, bathing the two women in a gentle light. Sarada watches in awe as the color slowly returns to Ya and Mujina's cheeks, with their breathing seeming to deepen, becoming stronger and more regular. The clone pops after a few minutes and Naruto opens his eyes to look down at both his loves, his concern evident on his face. Are you okay? Sarada asks, her voice laced with concern, and Naruto nods with a soft smile. Ya and Mujina slowly begin to stir with the former's eyelids fluttering and a soft moan escaping her lips. Ya. Can you hear me? Naruto calls softly, leaning closer to her. Ya's red eyes open and blink in confusion as they focus on Naruto's face. Naruto. What happened? I remember, she whispers, her voice weak but audible. You're okay. You're both okay, Naruto says with relief on his face as Mujina begins to stir and Sarada moves to her side, helping her sit up. Easy does it. You've been out for a while, Sarada said softly, supporting Mujina's back. Naruto pulls Ya into a soft embrace as his eyes scan both young women's faces. How are you feeling? He asks, concern evident in his voice. Weak. But better than I remember feeling before. What happened to us? Ya says, as she exchanges a look with Mujina. It's a long story. But the important thing is you're both awake now, Naruto says, his expression darkening. The two young women slowly regain their bearings. Sarada. Can you stay with them for a bit? I need to check on Tsunade, Naruto says, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Of course. Her room is just across the hallway, Sarada said, her dark eyes filled with understanding. Naruto gives her a grateful smile with a kiss to the cheek before making his way to the door. He steps into the corridor and takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what he might find. The wooden floorboards creak softly under his feet as he crosses the narrow hallway and raises his hand and knocks gently. For a moment, there is silence and Naruto's heart races with worry, but then, heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door swings open to reveal Esdeath as her ice blue eyes widen in surprise and relief at the sight of him. Darling. You're awake, Esdeath exclaims, her voice filled with emotion, and without hesitation, throws her arms around him. She pulls him into a tight embrace and Naruto wraps his arms around her waist, holding her close, feeling her heart beating rapidly against his chest to mirror his own. "I'm here. I'm okay," Naruto murmurs softly, his hand gently stroking her back. Death pulls back slightly with her eyes searching his face and her fingers caressing his cheeks. "We were so worried when you didn't wake up after dealing with that meteor," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry I scared you," Naruto said, cupping her face gently and his thumb brushing away a tear that has escaped down her cheek. Death nods and takes a deep breath to compose herself as she steps back to allow Naruto to enter the room. "Tsunade's resting," she explains in a low voice, gesturing towards the bed where the blonde woman lay. Naruto enters the room with his eyes immediately falling on Tsunade as she lays on the bed, her golden hair spread out on the pillow, her face pale but serene. At first glance, appears to be sleeping, but as Naruto approaches and sees her honey eyes were open, watching him intently. "Tsunade. How are you feeling?" Naruto said softly, kneeling beside her bed. Tsunade's eyes moved to look at him directly with a mixture of relief and exhaustion evident in her gaze. "I can't move my body yet. I used a lot of chakra to stabilize you." "Yeah, and Mujina," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. You saved us," Naruto says, his heart clenching but reaches out to gently take her hand. A faint smile tugs at Tsunade's lips. "That's what I'm here for, my love," she said, a hint of her usual sass in her tone despite her weakened state. "Her chakra levels are dangerously low," as Death says, her ice blue eyes filled with concern. "Maybe I can." "Tsunade. I shared some of my chakra with Ya and Mujina. It seemed to help. Would you let me try with you?" Naruto said, leaning closer to her and caressing her forehead. Tsunade's eyes widened slightly with a mix of surprise and curiosity in her gaze, but after a moment, gives a small nod while leaning into his touch as best she can. He places one hand on Tsunade's forehead and the other on her chest, right above her heart, and closes his eyes. He focuses on channeling his chakra, imagining it flowing from his body into hers like a gentle stream. Death watches in awe as color slowly returns to Tsunade's cheeks, her breathing becoming deeper and more regular. After a few minutes, Naruto opens his eyes and gets to his feet to sit on the edge of the bed to check on Tsunade. Her eyes were more alert now and she is slowly flexing her fingers as Naruto looks on with Death. "How do you feel?" Naruto asks, hope evident in his voice. Tsunade takes a deep breath but then slowly pushes herself up into a sitting position. Her honey eyes sparkle with newfound energy as she looks at Naruto with a loving smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, my love," Tsunade said, her voice stronger now and tinged with affection, but then leans forward to plant a soft kiss on his forehead. The gesture is both tender and playful, causing a slight blush to creep across Naruto's cheeks with a soft chuckle. "No problem. I have to keep my bear of a girlfriend on her feet, you know. Sensei would be pretty angry if I didn't," Naruto mumbles, a mix of embarrassment and pride coloring his voice. "Oh, I can just imagine. My mom's temper can be legendary," Tsunade says and lets out a warm chuckle, but her expression turns serious. "Kagaya," she adds with her voice low. "We will get her back," Naruto says with his jaw clenching, determination filling his eyes. "We're all here for you, darling," Death said, taking his hand and squeezing it in support. As they sit there and united in their resolve, the morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. It is a new day that is filled with challenges and uncertainties, but also with hope and the strength of their bonds. Kagaya finds herself experiencing a reality she never thought possible as Tonari has taken her to a place that defies her understanding, and that is the interior of a moon. She gazes around in disbelief as she finds herself in a world within a world, a small country hidden inside the celestial body. Vast oceans stretch before her, their waters eerily still and reflecting the strange, artificial light that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Mountains rise in the distance with their peaks shrouded in mist and creating an otherworldly landscape. Lush forests cover large swaths of land with their leaves rustling in a breeze that shouldn't exist in this enclosed world. No signs of civilization is visible, no smoke from chimneys, no distant sounds of people or machinery. Just an eerie and beautiful stillness that sends a shiver down Kagaya's spine. What is this place? Kagaya whispers, her voice barely audible even to herself. Tonari stands beside her with an air of smug satisfaction. Welcome to the legacy of the Otsutsuki clan. A world created by our ancestors and hidden from the eyes of those who dwell on earth, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. Kagaya's mind races while trying to process this information. She thought of Naruto and the others, wondering if they have any idea such a place could exist. She ponders their next move, and a small part of her couldn't help but marvel at the ingenuity and power it must have taken to create such a world. Why have you brought me here? Kagaya asks, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Tonari turns to her and his familiar pale eyes gleam with an intensity that makes Kagaya uncomfortable. You, my dear, are the key to restoring our clan's greatness, he said, reaching out to touch her face and brush his fingers across her soft skin. Kagaya jerks away from his touch and her Byakugan activates instinctively. I want no part in your plans, she said firmly, holding a Juken stance. You will in time, my precious. For now, let me show you the wonders of your new home, Tonari said confidently with a smile, seemingly unperturbed by her defiance. Tonari leads her deeper into this hidden world and Kagaya's mind is already working on a plan. She needs to find a way to contact Naruto and the others, to leave them some sort of clue about her whereabouts. But how to do that from inside a moon? The challenge seems insurmountable, but Kagaya is determined and she would find a way, no matter what it takes. 3 days have passed since that moment and Kagaya finds herself confined within the cold stone walls of Tonari's castle. The vast and otherworldly landscape she initially marveled at now feels like a distant memory, replaced by the suffocating confines of her ornate prison. Puppet guards with their blank eyes staring endlessly, standing at every corner and doorway. Their constant presence is a stark reminder of her captivity. Kagaya has tried to use her Byakugan to find weaknesses in their defense, but Tonari had thought of everything. The puppets were infused with a chakra-disrupting material that makes them nearly impervious to her Juken. My dear Kagaya, soon we shall be wed. Together, we will restore the Otsutsuki clan to its former glory, Tonari said, visiting her chambers on the evening of the 3rd day. His pale eyes gleam with an unsettling mixture of desire and determination. Kagaya's stomach churns at his disgusting words. I won't be a part of your twisted plan, Tonari, she hisses, her voice laced with venom. Tonari merely smiles and is unmoved by her defiance with a mixture of desire and determination as he steps closer to Kagaya. He reaches out in a swift motion and cups her face in his hands, his fingers pressing firmly against her cheeks. You are a descendant of Himura Otsutsuki, as am I. It is our destiny to repopulate our clan to bring forth a new generation of celestial beings, Tonari said, his voice low and intense. His thumbs trace small circles on her skin that is a gesture that is both possessive and unsettling. Kagaya's eyes widen at his touch and a shiver running down her spine. She tries to pull away, but Tonari's grip is unyielding. His face is now inches from hers and she could feel his warm breath on her skin. Can't you see? This is bigger than just you and me. We have a responsibility to our ancestors, to the very legacy of the Otsutsuki, Tonari continues, his gaze boring into hers. Kagaya's heart races with a mix of fear and anger surging through her. She places her hands on Tonari's chest and pushes against him with all her might. Let go of me, she demands, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts to sound strong. Tonari's grip on her face tightens for a moment before he's slowly releasing her as he steps back and his eyes never leaving hers. You will understand in time. Our union is inevitable. It is written in the stars themselves, he said, his voice tinged with a hint of arrogance. His words hang in the air like a suffocating fog as he leaves while Kagaya sinks to her knees, her heart heavy with despair. Tears well up in her eyes and blur her vision as she stares at the closed door. She thought of Naruto and of his unwavering determination or his ability to overcome impossible odds. The memory of his bright smile and kind eyes bring a fresh wave of tears cascading down her pale cheeks. Naruto. Please find me. Save me, Kagaya whispers, her voice barely audible. Her fingers clutch at the fabric of her outfit and knuckles turning white with the effort. Each breath comes as a shuddering gasp and her body racked with silent sobs. Please. I need you, Naruto, Kagaya whispers again, her words barely more than a breath. The dreaded day arrives sooner than Kagaya anticipated as the artificial light in her room brightens to simulate dawn. Her heart sinks as they enter and their blank eyes staring at her with eerie emptiness. It is time. You must prepare for the ceremony, one of the puppets announces in a monotone voice. Kagaya's protests fall on deaf ears as the puppets begin their task. They dress her in a wedding garb that make her cheeks burn with shame and anger. The dress is a stark white to symbolizing purity, but its design is anything but modest. The bodice hugs her curves tightly with a plunging neckline that leaves little to the imagination. The skirt is slit high on both sides and revealing glimpses of her legs with every movement. Black lace accents adorned the edges of the dress, creating a striking contrast against the white fabric and her pale skin. Kagaya catches sight of herself in the mirror and realizes with growing horror that the dress is designed to showcase her body, despite the fact that no one but Tonari would be attending this mockery of a wedding. This is inappropriate, Kagaya said, her voice trembling with a mixture of embarrassment and rage. The puppets pay no heed to her words and continue their work, arranging her hair in an elaborate updo and applying makeup to her face. Kagaya feels more like a doll being prepared for display than a bride on her wedding day with each passing moment. Kagaya soon stares at her reflection and the young woman looking back at her is beautiful but in a way that makes her feel exposed and vulnerable. Naruto, Kagaya whispers under her breath, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. The door to her room opens and Tonari stands there with his eyes widening as he takes in the sight of her. A smile spread across his face and it is one that sends chills down Kagaya's spine. My beautiful bride. It's time for us to begin our new life together, Tonari said, extending his hand towards her. Kagaya takes a deep breath while steeling herself for what is to come as she places her hand in Tonari's and reminding herself of her vow. She would resist, would fight with all her might and she would never give up hope. For Naruto would come for her and she is sure of it, but until then, she had to be strong. Tonari leads her to the makeshift altar, where a puppet dressed as a priest stands waiting. The artificial light in the room seems to dim, casting long shadows across the floor. Kagaya's heart races as she realizes the moment she has been dreading is upon her like a looming obelisk. The puppet priest begins the ceremony, its monotone voice echoing in the empty hall. Kagaya barely hears the words with her mind frantically searching for a way out. The ceremony progresses and the puppet priest produces a large but ornate cookie that is a symbol of their union. Tonari opens his mouth with a smug smile, allowing the puppet to place the ceremonial cookie between his lips and then turns to Kagaya, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Now my bride. Take your bite and our union will be complete, Tonari mumbles around the cookie. Kagaya's stomach churns as she closes her eyes, unable to look at Tonari's expectant face. Tears roll down her cheeks and leaving trails in her carefully applied makeup. No, Kagaya screams in her mind. Music, parallel universe, X-ray dog. Tonari leans in with the cookie mere inches from Kagaya's face, but suddenly a flash of golden light illuminates the room. A blur of motion appears behind Tonari in the blink of an eye and a powerful kick connects with the side of Tonari's face, the impact resonating through the air with a thunderous crack. Tonari's body is sent flying across the room with his white robes fluttering as he soars through the air, crashing into the far wall with a sickening thud. The stone crumbling around him from the force of the impact, dust and small debris raining down. Kagaya blinks while hardly daring to believe her eyes as standing before her, his golden SSJ aura blazing like a beacon of hope, is Naruto. He is dressed in rugged jeans tucked into sturdy boots, a long-sleeved shirt covered by a sleeveless hooded jacket and gloves. Naruto, Kagaya thought, and without a moment's hesitation. She rushes into his chest and wrapping her arms tightly around him as if afraid he might disappear. Naruto's strong arms envelope her, his warmth and strength a stark contrast to the cold emptiness she has endured for days. "You found me," Kagaya whispers, her voice muffled against his chest. She could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a comforting reminder that this is real and not just another desperate dream. Naruto's hand gently strokes her back with his touch, soothing away days of fear and anxiety. "It wasn't easy. I used Sage Mode to sense your chakra and then used instant transmission to get here," he said, his voice a mixture of relief and determination. Kagaya pulls back slightly and looking up into Naruto's face, "But how? If we were on Earth I could understand, but we're inside the moon, Naruto. How did you even know where to look?" she asks, her mind still struggling to comprehend his sudden appearance. Naruto's hand continues to stroke her back gently, his touch warm and reassuring against the thin fabric of her dress. "I went SSJ4 to amp my sensing abilities. It boosted my Sage Mode to levels I never thought possible," Naruto explains, his voice a low rumble that Kagaya could feel reverberating through his chest. Kagaya's eyes widen in amazement and overwhelmed by emotions, hugs Naruto tightly once more while burying her face in his chest. The tender moment is cut short as the rubble begins to shift and a low rumbling sound filling the room. Dust and small pieces of debris cascades down as larger chunks of stone move, seemingly of their own accord. The air grows thick with tension as Kagaya and Naruto watch, his muscles tense and ready for action. A hand bursts forth from the pile with pale fingers clawing at the air. And with a burst of chakra that send rocks flying in all directions, Tonari emerges from the wreckage with his once pristine robes now torn and covered in dust, his pale skin marred by cuts and bruises. "How dare you?" Tonari says, his voice filled with rage and disbelief while echoing through the room. Naruto turns his head and his locking eyes with Tonari's, his arms tightening protectively around Kagaya as she trembles slightly against him. The air crackles with tension as the two men stare each other down. "I dare. Because you took someone I love," Naruto said, his voice low and dangerous. His words were simple, but they carry the weight of his determination and the depth of his feelings. "Love? You speak of love? She is destined to be with me and restore the Otsutsuki clan to its former glory," Tonari declares, his face contorted with anger and jealousy. Naruto gently guides Kagaya behind him and shielding her with his body. "Kagaya isn't some tool for your ambitions. She's a person with her own feelings and desires. And I won't let you force her into anything she doesn't want," he said firmly, his eyes shimmering with protectiveness. Kagaya feels a surge of gratitude and affection for Naruto while placing her hands on his back, drawing strength from his unwavering presence. "You don't understand. This is bigger than any of us. The fate of our clan," Tonari says with his eyes darting between the couple, his face a mask of fury and desperation. "Is not Kagaya's burden to bear. Whatever plans you had. Whatever twisted future you imagined. It ends now," Naruto interrupts, his voice resolute and Tonari gnashing his teeth in anger. "I'm going to create a clone to take you back. I'll deal with this here," Naruto says, not taking his eyes off Tonari. A clone pops to life with a puff of smoke as Kagaya reaches out to grasp Naruto's arm. "Please be careful, my love," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. She leans in and presses a soft kiss to his cheek, her warm lips against his skin is a stark contrast to the cold atmosphere of the room. Naruto's expression softens for a moment as he feels Kagaya's kiss and allows himself a brief glance at her, taking in her worried expression and the elaborate wedding dress she wears. He couldn't help but admire how beautiful she looks, despite the circumstances and Tonari opposite him. "I will. And I hope see a beautiful dress on our wedding day or something close," Naruto promises, his blue eyes meeting hers. Kagaya's eyes widen at his words with a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Naruto's ability to make her heart flutter amazes her, even in this tense moment, and she nods, unable to find words to express the mix of emotions swirling within her. The clone gently takes Kagaya's hand and is ready to lead her to safety. Naruto watches as they prepare to leave, his jaw set with determination, and focuses his full attention back to Tonari, his expression hardening once more. "Now, let's settle this," Naruto said, his voice low and focused. Tonari's lips curl into a snarl and his body tensing for the impending battle. The last thing Kaguya sees before they disappear with Naruto standing tall, his golden aura illuminating the room and ready to face whatever Tonari would throw at him. "You will not deny me," Tonari hisses, his pale eyes blazing with fury, and with a wave of his hand, the windows of the grand hall shatters and an army of puppets pour in, their blank eyes fixed on Naruto as they charge forward and their movements eerily synchronized. Naruto's eyes narrow with his muscles tensing as he assesses the situation and quickly unleashing a primal roar. He flares his aura with the golden energy pulsing outward in an explosive wave. The puppets closest to him disintegrate instantly and their wooden bodies unable to withstand the raw power. The energy wave continues to expand and ripping through the remaining puppets like they were made of paper. Wood splinters, gears and springs fly in all directions and the air fills with the sound of destruction. Tonari is caught off guard by the sheer force of Naruto's attack and is blown backwards, crashing through the stone wall behind him, debris raining down as he disappears from view. Now Naruto thought, without missing a beat, and charges forward. His body is moving with incredible speed and bursts through the hole in the wall, his eyes scanning the dust-filled air for his opponent. He spots Tonari rising from a pile of rubble, but before he could fully regain his footing, Naruto is upon him with a fierce battle cry and spears into Tonari, driving them both through yet another wall. They crash into a new room and Naruto didn't let up, pinning Tonari against the wall with his fists becoming a blur as he unleashes a flurry of punches, but to the redhead's surprise Tonari's hands shot up with unexpected speed and catches Naruto's fists mid-strike as their eyes lock, and Tonari's grip tightens so much that his knuckles turn white from the effort. "I will not let you take her from me," Tonari snarls, his voice dripping with venom and desperation. Tonari releases one of his fists before Naruto could react and in a flash connects with bone-jarring left to Naruto's face. The impact sends Naruto flying backward, his boots skidding across the floor and leaving a trail of broken tiles in his wake. Naruto shakes his head to clear the stars from his vision but sees Tonari stepping forward, his movements deliberate and menacing. Tonari tears off the upper portion of his robes in a swift motion, revealing a toned physique that seems to pulse with power. The air around Tonari begins to shimmer and distort as he releases an overwhelming amount of chakra. The sheer volume of chakra pouring out of him is staggering, causing the very foundations of the room to tremble. Naruto watches in a mix of awe and anticipation as Tonari's featureless white eyes begin to change as blue pupils materialize, filled with what looks like overlapping white flower patterns. The sight is both beautiful and terrifying, but a clear sign that Tonari is tapping into power that Naruto did anticipate. "How?" Naruto roars, flaring his SSJ aura and causing loose debris to fly away from the sheer force of his power. Naruto's hair spikes even more and his body crackling with blue bioelectricity as he ascends to SSJ2. The two warriors stand facing each other as the air between them crackles with tension and raw power. The room that is already damaged from their initial clash begins to crumble further under the pressure of their combined energy. Both warriors launch themselves at each other without warning, their bodies blurring with speed. They meet in the middle of the crumbling room, their fists colliding with earth-shattering force. The impact sends a shockwave rippling through the air, causing the remaining walls to crack and crumble. Naruto and Tonari exchange a flurry of punches and kicks, their movements so fast they were almost invisible to the naked eye. Each blow that connects echoes like thunder, sending vibrations through the floor beneath their feet or a parry destroying everything its path. They fight as their battle gradually moves them towards the outer walls of the castle. Debris rains down around them, but neither warrior paid it any mind, too focused on the fight at hand. Naruto ducks under one of Tonari's punches, feeling the wind rush past his face as the fist misses him by mere inches. "He's good," Naruto thought, dropping low and his leg sweeping out in a powerful kick. Tonari leaps over it, but Naruto anticipates this as he pushes off the ground with his hands, both feet connecting squarely with Tonari's chest in a dropkick. The force of the kick sends Tonari flying backward and his body crashing through the outer wall of the castle. The wall gives way and Naruto catches a glimpse of the artificial world outside of a vast lake stretching out before them, its surface eerily still in the strange and sourceless light. Tonari's body arcs through the air and heading straight for the lake, but Naruto appears above to connects with double foot stomp to his stomach as his opponent disappears beneath the water's surface with a tremendous splash. Naruto hovers above with everything quiet except for his SSJ aura and falling debris. "Be ready, boy," Musashi says, as the redhead scans the water for any sign of Tonari. The surface of the water begins to churn and bubbles rising to the surface in an ever-increasing frenzy. Tonari bursts from the lake with an explosion of water and his pale eyes blazing with unbridled fury. Water cascades off his body as he hovers above the lake's surface and his hands forming a ram sign. "I will not be denied," Tonari roars, his voice echoing across the vast expanse of the artificial world. The air around him begins to shimmer and distort while pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Naruto's muscles tenses and is ready to launch himself down at Tonari. "Watch out, boya!" Musashi's shout rings through Naruto's consciousness. Before Naruto could fully process the warning, a massive hand materializes out of thin air. It is enormous and is easily the size of a small building, and seems to be made of pure energy. The hand slams into Naruto with devastating force to send him flying, and the impact is so violent that it disturbs the very air around them. A shockwave ripples outward, causing the lake's surface to churn and froth. Trees on the distant shore sway and are bent as if caught in a sudden gale. Naruto's body crashes through several walls of the castle, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. He finally comes to a stop, buried under a pile of rubble and gasping for breath. "Fucking hell," Naruto thought, as his SSJ aura begins to churn. It explodes outward and disintegrates the rubble that has buried him. Chunks of stone and debris scatter in all directions as he rises to his feet. Naruto senses another attack incoming and darts backward just as another massive energy fist crashes into the spot he occupied mere seconds before. The castle trembles from the impact with more walls crumbling under the onslaught as Naruto's eyes lock onto Tonari's floating form. His hands flies through a series of signs and ending on the horse seal into a deep breath, his chest expanding as he gathered chakra. "Kiten, Goka Mikyaku," Naruto thought, channeling his intent into the jutsu. He exhales, a torrent of blue flames erupts from his mouth. The sea of azure flames spread rapidly and far more intense than any normal fire technique. The heat is so immense that the very air seems to waver and distort around it. The inferno surges towards Tonari and melting everything in its path, with stone liquefying, metal vaporizing, and even the water of the lake beginning to steam violently where the flames touched it. The blue conflagration illuminates the entire area with an eerie and otherworldly light as it bears down on Naruto's opponent, but just as the flames were about to engulf him. Tonari vanishes and Naruto's eyes widen, but a flicker of movement catches his attention and he instinctively twists to his right. Tonari materializes there with his fist already in motion and Naruto barely manages to block, the impact sending shockwaves through his arm but without pause. Tonari launches into a flurry of punches and kicks, each strike precise and devastatingly powerful. Naruto counters by matching Tonari blow for blow, their forms blurring as they engaged in a high-speed battle, shunshinanji around the ruins of the once grand castle. Walls crumble and pillars shatter as they clash, their movements too fast for the untrained eye to follow. "You're persistent. I'll give you that," Naruto grunts out, deflecting a kick aimed at his head. Tonari's response is a snarl as he redoubles his efforts. They flicker in and out of sight, appearing momentarily atop a crumbling tower, then by a shattered archway, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. The air crackles with energy as they exchange blows, each impact resonating through the castle remains. Dust and debris swirl around them, creating a chaotic vortex that mirrored the intensity of their battle, but Naruto creates some distance between them. Naruto's left hand forms a swirling mass of chakra, crackling with an eerie purple light as Tonari's eyes narrow, but the redhead vanishes suddenly. Tonari's eyes widen in surprise with his head whipping around as he tries to locate his opponent, but it is too late. Naruto materializes directly in front of Tonari and mere inches from his face. As time seems to slow as their eyes meet. "Murasaki," Naruto said, his voice low but clear in the sudden silence. Naruto thrusts his hand forward before Tonari could react. The purple lightning Rasengan shoots from his palm like a bolt of lightning, crackling with raw power and connecting with its target at point-blank range. The castle ruins light up with an intense purple glow as the attack and the force of the blast send Tonari hurtling away from Naruto. His eyes scan the area and searches for any sign of Tonari amidst the settling dust and debris he collided with. "Here is some natural chakra, boy," Musashi says, her voice echoing in his thoughts. Naruto feels a surge of power coursing through his body as blue markings begin to appear, starting from his left eye and trailing down his body like intricate tattoos. The influx of natural energy sharpens his senses to an almost painful degree. Naruto quickly picks up a massive buildup of chakra occurring nearby, far greater than anything he has felt before in this battle. Music change, the driller, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, loop. A pillar of Saiyan chakra suddenly erupts from the rubble and piercing the false sky like a beacon. The sheer force of it causes the remaining structures around them to crumble and the lake's surface to churn violently. Naruto could make out Tonari's silhouette in the heart of this chakra pillar, his opponent's form seeming to be changing, and Naruto instinctively activates Observe to gather more information. "Tenseigan chakra mode," Naruto mutters, his eyes widening as the information flooded his mind. As the pillar of energy began to dissipate and Tonari's transformed state becomes clearly visible. His body is now enveloped in a cyan-colored chakra shroud that pulses with power. 6 Magatama markings adorn his collar and glowing with an otherworldly light. Dark and intricate markings appear over his eyebrows and lower eyelids, giving him an almost ethereal appearance. But what caught Naruto's attention the most is the single horn extending from Tonari's forehead. The shroud surrounding Tonari constantly radiates a flickering flames of chakra, creating an aura of immense power. The very air around Tonari seems to vibrate with energy and distorting the space around him. This is the true power of the Otsutsuki. "Witness the might of the Tenseigan," Tonari declares, filled with a newfound confidence. Naruto grits his teeth and could feel the immense chakra radiating from Tonari, far surpassing anything he had faced before. The air crackle with energy, making the hairs on the back of Naruto's neck stand on end. Tonari vanishes from sight and Naruto's enhanced senses kick into overdrive, a flicker of cyan catching his peripheral vision as Tonari blinks into existence directly in front of Naruto. Time seemed to slow as Naruto's body instinctively reacts, twisting to avoid the devastating punch, but could feel the air displacement as Tonari's fist brushes past his face, missing by mere millimeters. A sharp and searing pain explodes in Naruto's left eye as a warm, wet sensation trickles down his cheek. "What the?" Naruto gasps out, his hand reflexively moving to his face and his gloved fingers come away red. Naruto realizes with horror that he couldn't see out of his left eye. The pain is intense as if his eye has been sliced open, despite Tonari's punch not making direct contact. Surprised. "The Tenseigan's power extends beyond mere physical attacks," Tonari says, his voice is cold and a hint of satisfaction evident in his tone. "Can you heal the damage, Musashi?" Naruto thought desperately but ready to clash with Tonari. "I can't, boya. His chakra is just as corrosive as mine. You can train your body but you can't train eyes despite your durability. Though once you defeat Tobi, you'll get a new eye," Musashi says, her voice tinged with concern. "Right, but we need to get past him," Naruto says, realizing the power he is now facing. Tonari didn't wait for Naruto to recover and with a burst of cyan energy, launches himself at the redhead as his fist crackling with otherworldly power. Naruto flares his SSJ aura and he meets Tonari's charge head-on with their fists colliding in midair, sending shockwaves rippling through the ruined castle. "Hyakuratsuken," Naruto thought, unleashing a barrage of punches and each strike infused with martial chi. The air crackles with energy as he fights through the pain and disorientation of his injury while Tonari matches him blow for blow, his Tensegan-enhanced reflexes allowing him to keep pace with Naruto's onslaught. Cyan and golden auras clash violently to create a dazzling light show that illuminates the battlefield. Tonari's cyan-shrouded fist breaks through Naruto's defense with a sickening crunch and breaking Naruto's nose. Naruto flies back with his vision blurring from the impact, his nose throbbing intensely, and he could taste the metallic tang of blood in his mouth. "Is that all you've got, human?" Tonari taunts, his voice dripping with disdain. Naruto wastes no time and lunges as their hands shoot out simultaneously, their fingers interlocking and neither willing to give an inch as they engage in a midair test of strength. The air around them crackles as their auras clash violently with discharges of energy destroying anything it hits. A stray bolt of cyan energy strikes a nearby pillar, causing it to crumble into dust. Another golden discharge hits the surface of the lake, sending a geyser of water erupting skyward. "I won't let you win," Naruto growls through clenched teeth, his golden aura flaring brighter in response to his determination and pushing closer to the next level. Tonari's eyes narrow with a hint of surprise flickering across his face at Naruto's tenacity. "Your persistence is admirable but futile," Tonari retorts, pushing back with equal force, but Naruto yanks him forward into a crushing headbutt. A thunderous crack echoes through the air as their foreheads collide. Tonari's eyes widen in shock with his cyan aura flickering momentarily. The force of the blow sends him floating backward, dazed and disoriented. "Final shine," Naruto roars, firing the beam of green energy with his right hand. Tonari is caught in the full brunt of the attack that carries him through the air, sending him crashing back into his own castle with explosive force. Naruto rips off his jacket and then roars to the false sky as his SSJ aura explodes out, his muscles bulging and his blonde hair beginning to extend down his back as his eyebrows vanish. Tonari rises from the debris of his castle, his cyan aura flickering back to life and his eyes are burning with rage, locked onto Naruto's transformed state. "Another costume change, human," Tonari spits while rising into the air, his voice dripping with disdain and frustration. "Yeah, just another costume change for the lowly human," Naruto replies, his voice deeper and more resonant in this new form. Without a warning, both fighters vanish from sight, only to reappear in the center of the battlefield, their fists colliding with earth-shattering force. The impact sends shockwaves rippling through the air, uprooting trees and crumbling nearby ruins. Naruto and Tonari become blurs of gold and cyan, exchanging a furious barrage of punches and kicks, each strike carrying enough power to level mountains. The sound of their clashes echo like thunder and reverberate across the landscape. Naruto's long golden hair whips wildly as he dodges a vicious roundhouse kick from Tonari, his foot passing mere inches from his face and the displaced air cutting a deep gouge in a nearby cliff face. Naruto retaliates with lightning speed as Tonari manages to deflect most but one slips through his guard, connecting with his chest, and the impact sends him hurtling backward, his body carving a trench through the earth as he skids to a stop. Tonari barely has time to regain his footing before Naruto is upon him again as Tonari bends backward at an impossible angle, the punch sailing over him and obliterating a section of ground. Forests were flattened, lakes vaporized, and the very ground reshaped by the force of their conflict as both whip about the false continent. Naruto suddenly connects with a devastating uppercut to Tonari, lightning breaker. Naruto roars as the Mach speed punch lands, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. The impact is catastrophic as Tonari's eyes widen in shock as his body lifted off the ground and propelled by the sheer force of Naruto's attack. He rockets upward at Mach speed, his cyan aura leaving a trail in the sky as he soars uncontrollably through the air. "Enough," Tonari calls out, his voice carrying despite the distance. Tonari holds his hands forward with palms facing Naruto. The air around him begins to shimmer and distort as he channels his power. A silvery vortex forms between his hands, growing larger and more intense with each passing second. "Jinrin Tensei Baku," Tonari shouts, his voice echoing across the landscape. The silvery typhoon surges forward and racing towards Naruto with terrifying speed. The attack is massive and easily dwarfing Tonari himself, and it tears through the air with a deafening roar. Naruto's eyes widens as he sees the incoming attack and forms a Rasengan that grows larger with each second. Chachadama Rasengan, he yells, forming an enormous sphere of spiraling chakra. The two techniques collide with earth-shattering force, creating a blinding flash of light that illuminated the entire area. The ground beneath Naruto's feet cracks and splinters as he struggles to hold his ground against the overwhelming force. But even as Naruto pours more power into his Rasengan, could feel Tonari's attack gaining the upper hand. The silver winds beginning to overtake his spiraling chakra, inch by excruciating inch, but feels his top starting to tear, the fabric shredding under the relentless assault. Just as the silver typhoon continues to overcome his attack and to engulf him, Naruto vanishes as the attack reaches the ground and the resulting explosion is catastrophic. A blinding flash of light erupts from the point of impact, followed by a deafening roar that echoes across the landscape. The ground shakes violently with deep fissures spreading outward from the epicenter of the blast. "Are you dead, human?" Tonari thought, as the dust begins to settle. The sudden quiet after the explosion is unnerving, broken only by the sound of falling debris and the distant rumble of collapsing terrain. Naruto then appears with a delayed dropkick to Tonari's face with a crunch and sending the Otsutsuki flying back as Naruto launches after him, but Tonari launches higher into the sky. "I will kill you, human, and take back Kaguya," Tonari roars, and his voice dripping with venom, but he raises his hands above his head. "Perhaps I'll take those other women I spared as well," he adds with a wicked smirk spread across his face. A golden orb of energy that is pulsing with an ominous light begins to hover between Tonari's raised palms. Naruto watches with gritted teeth as the orb begins to grow, its size increasing at an alarming rate. The air around it shimmers with heat and bolts of energy crackled across its surface. "It's like the one from the boat," Naruto breathes out, his mind racing and remembering what started this. The orb is already the size of a small house and still expanding as he could feel the immense power radiating from it, even from this distance. "Kinrin Tensei Baku," Tonari roars and sends the golden hurtling towards Naruto at breakneck speed. Music change, American Pearl, Revelation. Naruto's golden explodes around him and he flings his hands up to catch the collapsing orb, with the impact being tremendous. Naruto's feet dig into the earth and create deep trenches as the force of the attack pushes him back. He could feel the heat of the orb against his palms, the energy crackling and threatening to overwhelm him. "I won't let you win," Naruto growls, his muscles straining with effort. The ground continues to give way under him as Tonari's attack forces Naruto downward. "Now die, lowly human," Tonari's voice booms from above, laced with malicious glee. The orb pushes Naruto down, but as it touches the ground, sends shockwaves rippling through the already ravaged landscape. Tonari begins to laugh with a wild laugh, but his breath hitches and his eyes widen in disbelief as his fiery orb begins to rise off the ground. "Impossible," he snarls, his composure slipping for the first time. "Gallic Gun," Naruto roars, the purple beam of energy erupting from his hands. The attack accelerates the orb's ascent and sending it hurtling back towards a stunned Tonari. The Otsutsuki barely has time to raise his arms in defense before his own attack, now supercharged by Naruto's Gallic Gun, crashes into him. The impact sends both Tonari and the orb rocketing through the moon's false sky, streaking through ancient chambers and hidden passages like a comet. Naruto is not willing to let up and fires a super Gallic Gun into the blast. Tonari and the orb tears through the moon's core towards the surface. The walls of the hidden lunar base crumbling, ancient technology and forgotten secrets exposed to the vacuum of space. "Take this, child of Earth," a voice says, and Naruto feels a surge of energy well up inside him. His aura flares even brighter and pushing Tonari through the final layers of the moon's surface. He bursts out into the vacuum of space while leaving behind a trail of lunar dust and fragments. Naruto's attack shows no signs of slowing down, propelling Tonari further and further away from the moon, streaking across the inky blackness of space like a purple comet. Tonari struggles against the overwhelming force but finds himself helplessly pinned to his own golden orb, unable to break free from Naruto's relentless assault. Curse you, human. I'm going get off this, and when I do, Tonari thought, but begins to feel an intense heat. Behind him and drawing closer is the blazing sphere of the sun, its fiery surface seeming to reach out towards them and promising destruction. No. This can't be happening, Tonari screams, his voice lost in the vacuum of space. The sun's gravitational pull begins to take hold and accelerating their approach, its massive size now filling Tonari's entire field of vision. The Otsutsuki clan member feels a primal fear grip him as he realizes the full extent of his predicament. His own golden orb that is once a weapon of destruction but now serves as the vessel of his doom. He could feel his skin blistering, his clothes starting to smolder. The golden orb, unable to withstand the sun's incredible energy, begins to warp and distort as Tonari's thoughts race. He sees flashes of his life, his ambitions, and ultimately his failure. As the sun's fiery embrace engulfs him with Tonari letting out one last but defiant scream before being consumed by the star's unimaginable power. Naruto finally lowers his hands back on the moon as SSJ-3 and Super Gallic Gun dissipates. He falls on his back with gulping breaths and wondering how to get back to the earth but the destruction of the moon partially. Song ends. Emergency quest completed. Reward. 1. 1000 to stats. 2. Moon will be restored to previous state. A few moments after leaving with Naruto and Kagaya sees the familiar lush backyard, causing her to blink, adjusting to the bright sunlight and fresh air that is a stark contrast to the cold but oppressive atmosphere of Tonari's lair. Before she can fully process her surroundings, the sound of a glass door sliding open catches her attention. Kagaya turns to see a group of women rushing out with their faces are a mix of concern, relief, and excitement. Tsunade is leading the group, her blonde pigtails trailing behind her as she runs towards Kagaya with outstretched arms. Kagaya, Tsunade cries out, enveloping her white-haired sister in all but blood in a tight embrace. The warmth of her hug is a stark contrast to the cold loneliness Kagaya endured, and she finds herself melting into the embrace, her eyes welling up with tears of relief. We were so worried, Tsunade murmurs, her voice thick with emotion. She pulls back slightly with her hands on Kagaya's shoulders as she looks her over, checking for any signs of injury but sees the revealing dress. Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention? What is with this dress? Sarada says, her dark eyes scanning Kagaya critically. The others gather around with their voices overlapping in a chorus of concern and relief. If that monster did anything to you, just say the word. I'll freeze him, Solidus Death says, her blue hair swaying in the gentle breeze. You must be exhausted. Let's get you inside and comfortable, Ya says, her kind eyes filled with worry. We can make you some tea and snacks. You probably haven't eaten properly in days, Mujina says, wiping a tear and Dryger rubbing against Kagaya's leg. Kagaya feels a lump forming in her throat as she is overwhelmed by their care and attention. I'm okay. Naruto. He saved me, she manages to say, her voice barely above a whisper. The girls lead Kagaya towards the house while offering words of comfort and support, but she can't help cast one last glance over her shoulder. Your mom and sisters are here, Sarada says, her tone soft and reassuring. Kagaya's heart skips a beat as standing just a few feet away is her mother and her little sisters. Their familiar faces bring a fresh wave of emotion washing over her. Hitomi steps forward as her eyes glisten with unshed tears. Kagaya, my dear, she whispers, opening her arms wide. Kagaya rushes into her mother's embrace, despite this provocative dress, and feels like a child once more. Hinata and Hanabi join in with their small arms wrapping around Kagaya's waist. Big sister. We missed you so much, Hinata says, her voice muffled against Kagaya's side. We were so worried, Hanabi adds, nodding her head vigorously. As Kagaya basks in the warmth of her family's love, notices more familiar faces approaching like Tsunade's mother and offers a gentle smile. Itachi is standing nearby with a look of relief on his stoic face, and his mother is standing next to him, wiping a stray tear from her eye. Kakashi and Enko approach as well with Rin in her arms. The sight of the child brings a soft smile to Kagaya's face, a reminder of the innocence and hope that still exists in their world. "It's good to have you back, Kagaya," Kakashi says, his visible eye crinkling in a smile. "Yeah. Our little one's been asking about her Aunt Kagaya nonstop," Enko adds with a grin, bouncing Rin gently. "Where's the real Naruto?" Mujina asks, her voice tinged with worry and picking up Dryger as they settle into the spacious living room. The question hangs in the air and all eyes turn to Kagaya as she takes a deep breath, her hands clasping her dress tightly in her lap. He's still fighting Tonari. On the moon, Kagaya explains, her voice soft but steady. A collective gasp ripples through the room. "The moon? Kagaya, what happened after you were taken?" Tsunade says, her honey flickering in disbelief. Kagaya closes her eyes for a moment and gathers her thoughts. "Tonari. He took me to the moon. He has a hidden base there and a remnant of the Otsutsuki in which our clan is descended from." She begins with a look to her mother and pauses for a moment. "He wanted to marry me," she adds, a mix of fear and determination in her gaze. "Marry you? Against your will and put you in that dress?" Death says, her eyes narrowing dangerously. "He spoke of repopulating the Otsutsuki clan. He believes it's his destiny to restore their power and influence over the earth," Kagaya says, her voice growing stronger as she continues. "So he targeted you because of your apparent Otsutsuki lineage?" Sarada asks, her analytical mind already working. "Yes. He sees himself as the last pure Otsutsuki and he wanted to use me to create a new generation," Kagaya confirms with a nod. "That's terrible. You must have been so scared," Yu says with her hand finding Kagaya's, offering silent support. "I was. But then Naruto came before Tonari could complete his ceremony. The last I saw they were about to face off," Kagaya says, squeezing Yu's hand gratefully. "But he's all alone up there now," Mujina says, worry etching on her features. "Yes, but I believe in him. The way he looked at me. The promise in his eyes. I know he'll come back to us," Kagaya says, nodding slowly and her eyes flickering. The room falls into a contemplative silence, each person processing the gravity of the situation. Kagaya looks around at the concerned faces of her loved ones, feeling a mix of comfort and unease. She fidgets with the hem of her dress, suddenly acutely aware of the garment Tonari forced her to wear. I think I need a moment. I'd like to change out of this dress," Kagaya says softly, rising from her seat. "Of course," Tsunade says, giving the provocative dress a once-over and shaking her head. Kagaya makes her way upstairs with her bare feet padding softly on the wooden steps. She enters her room with a wave of nostalgia washing over her as she takes in the familiar surroundings. She walks to her closet, sliding the door open and pushing past the hangers until she finds what she's looking for. She sighs with relief, pulling out a soft and oversized sweater in a pale blue color. Kagaya slips off the revealing dress Tonari had chosen for her, letting it pool at her feet. She kicks it aside, wanting nothing more than to forget the feel of it against her skin. She pulls on the sweater and reveling in its familiar warmth, then grabs a pair of simple black shorts. Kagaya catches a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her long white hair is slightly disheveled and there's a haunted look in her pale eyes. She takes a deep breath while trying to shake off the lingering fear from her ordeal. "You're safe now," Kagaya whispers to her reflection, attempting to convince herself as much as anyone else. Kagaya heads back downstairs with one last look around her room. The soft fabric of her sweater and the freedom of movement in her shorts make her feel more like herself. She descends the stairs and can hear the low murmur of conversation from the living room. She pauses at the bottom of the stairs and takes another deep breath. Her worry for Naruto gnaws at her and she closes her eyes for a moment, sending a silent prayer for his safety. "Please come back to us," Naruto, Kagaya whispers before stepping back into the living room to rejoin her family and friends. Kagaya enters the room and is greeted by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed tea and the sight of her mother carefully arranging a plate with a sandwich. The simple gesture of care brings a small smile to Kagaya's face. Her gaze sweeps across the room, taking in the familiar faces of her loved ones. Sarada sits on one of the sofas and next to her is Ya perching on the edge of the cushion. Isdeth lounges on another sofa with Mujina sitting cross-legged on the floor as she watches her little sisters play with Dryger, her expression a blend of worry and relief as she looks up at Kagaya while Tsunade occupies an armchair. Kagaya catches glimpses of the others outside through the glass door to the front yard hidden by the wall. Itachi stands tall and composed with his mother looking at the garden. Kakashi leans against a tree with Anko sitting on a nearby bench, cradling Rin in her arms and cooing softly to her daughter. Tobia moves between them while offering words of comfort and support. "Here, dear. You must be hungry," Hitomi says softly, offering the plate and a steaming cup of tea. "Thank you, mother," Kagaya says softly, her voice thick with emotion and taking the plate with trembling hands. Kagaya moves to sit on the sofa with Isdeth as she takes a small bite of the sandwich, savoring the familiar taste of home. She watches her sister play as she eats with Dryger playfully pawing at a string toy Hinata dangles in front of her. Dryger rolls onto her back and bats at Hanabi's hand with soft paws. Kagaya finishes her sandwich and reaches for her cup as Isdeth leans forward. "Is there a way for us to reach the moon through some kind of means?" Isdeth asks, her voice calm but laced with urgency. Kagaya shakes her head sadly and setting her empty plate aside, "I'm afraid not. Tonari simply teleported us there using his unique Otsutsuki abilities. And Naruto. He only got there through instant transmission," she replies, her voice soft but steady. A heavy silence falls over the room as the reality of their situation sinks in. "So we're essentially powerless to help him," Sarada says, more a statement than a question. "Yes, but Naruto is strong. If anyone can defeat Tonari and return safely, it's him," Kagaya says, feeling a lump form in her throat. "But he's all alone up there. What if he needs help?" Mujina says, her eyes filled with worry. "Naruto has faced impossible odds before and come out victorious. We have to believe in him now," Tsunade comments, rocking her leg a bit and silently praying. Tsunade's right. Naruto's fighting not just for himself but for all of us. That gives him strength beyond measure, Ya adds, nodding in agreement with Tsunade. Kagaya finds her gaze drawn to the glass as the moon hangs in the afternoon sky, barely visible but ever present. She rises from her seat and places her hand against the cool glass, as if trying to reach across the vast distance to where Naruto is fighting. "Be safe, Naruto," Kagaya whispers, her breath fogging the window. A sudden tremor shakes the house suddenly with the floorboards creaking and the windows rattling, causing everyone to look around in alarm, then a blinding light floods the room as if the sun itself has decided to pay a visit. "What's happening?" Mujina shouts, shielding her eyes from the intense glare. Kagaya's heart races as she instinctively moves towards her younger sisters, Hinata. "Hanabi," she calls out, reaching for them. "I've got them," Sarada says, helping Kagaya gather the startled girls. "Everyone outside," Tsunade shouts, opening the glass door to the front yard. The light dims to normal as the group hurries through the door and Kagaya has Hinata clinging to her hand, and Sarada is carrying a wide-eyed Hanabi. The tremors have subsided and leaves an eerie calm in their wake. "Is everyone all right?" Itachi asks, his Sharingan activated as he scans the area for potential threats. "What do you think that was?" Ya asks, her eyes darting around nervously. "An earthquake certainly, but that light," Tsunade says with a frown, looking to the sun, "and it seems normal now." "It wasn't natural," Isdeth states, her ice blue eyes narrowed in thought. As the group discuss the strange occurrence, but Kagaya feels a tug on her sleeve. She looks down to see Hinata with her pale eyes wide in wonder. "Big sister." "Look," Hinata whispers, pointing at the sky. Kagaya follows her sister's gaze and her breath catching in her throat. There in the barely visible in the afternoon sky is the moon shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Could it be? Kagaya murmurs, hope blooming in her chest. Her eyes remain fixed on the shimmering moon and her heart pounding with anticipation. The ethereal glow of the moon flickers and fades, plunging them back into the ordinary afternoon light, and for a heartbeat, everything is still but then. The sound similar to Shunshin echoes behind them as behind a figure crashes onto the cool grass and they whip around to see who. Naruto, Kagaya cries out, her voice cracking with anguish. Naruto is motionless except for his bare chest rises and falling while they could see a patchwork of angry cuts and dark bruises that mar his tan skin. Though some of the wounds seem to be slowly knitting themselves together, but the extent of the damage is shocking. But it's his face that draws their horrified attention, as where his left eye should be, there's only a raw and angry wound with dried blood. Tsunade is the first to break from the stunned silence and her medical training kicking in. Everyone give him space, she shouts, rushing to her Naruto's side. Her hands already glow with healing chakra as she kneels beside him. Where's Tonari? I'll freeze him solid for this, is Death hisses, her face a mask of barely contained fury as she scans the sky. Kagaya's hard in her throat and takes a shaky step forward. Naruto. What happened to you up there, she whispers, reaching out a trembling hand towards him. That would be the million-dollar question as Tsunade and Tobium begin to heal Naruto to move him inside, but for his six loves would have to wait to learn the answer. And that wraps up today's chapter of Naruto, the Gamer Experience. Naruto's journey is only getting crazier. New powers, stronger enemies, bigger mysteries, and legendary battles still await. If you enjoyed this chapter, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next upload. Comment below, what was your favorite moment in this chapter? Until next time. Keep grinding. Keep leveling up. And I'll see you in the next chapter.